Hey, Discover Church. Pastor Steve here with our friend from Singapore. We're here together in Thailand, and our friend is David. Yeah. And what do you tell us a little bit? What are you doing here in Thailand?
Okay, I'm here for a short break to explore Thailand and various places, so that should anything happen, we know where to go.
Okay, so we have a term that we've been using for that, and we're not the only ones, but I call that our Goshen. And it comes from Exodus, where when the 10 plagues happened, the Egyptians were struck, but there were a group of believers and also the people that chose to be with the believers who were protected. So we call that the Goshen. So we're all kind of looking at Goshen, and you were talking about how in Singapore, because it's such a police state. Let's call it a police state, okay? Because I'm not in Singapore, I can say that. It's a police state that is under total control. People are completely blinded, right? The Christians are blinded. You can take a COVID shot and die in Singapore, and the government will muzzle you, and you can't talk about it. That's a police state. You got to have freedom. Now, I know you're not going to say anything about it, but we've had people in our families in Malaysia and other places die after the shot. Sometimes it's, 2 shots, 3 shots. And now we can finally talk about it in Australia and in America, but there's still a country where you can't talk about it. So I will say that because I love Singapore and I love Singaporeans. I don't know if they love me as much as I love them, but at least I tell it like it is, honestly. If you're in a police state and you're in this environment where it's the end time, and they're going to do something that's bigger than COVID. They're going to lock you down and they're going to starve you to death. This time they only just said it's voluntary, and if you don't take it, you'll just not go to work. But it's voluntary. I mean, obviously that is highly coercive and manipulative, but they still called it voluntary. But in the next, epidemic or pandemic, they're going to make it mandatory, meaning, well, sorry, you're not going to be able to go to the grocery store. You're not going to be able to eat. You're not going to be able to buy and sell, because we know that's what Revelation chapter 13 says. It's not conspiracy. It's God's word. So we're looking, people like David, myself, and others that I meet when I travel, there's a big question. If a nuclear war happens, if a nuclear winter comes, if another pandemic comes, if there's global famine, which is going to come in 2.5 years, where do we go that's safe? That's like the $1 million question. If you could get the answer to that, that's worth $1 million. So we've been going through the list together. I think we both have some travel, sufficient travel and personal experience to give you a bit of an idea. So you have to think about it, because a lot of people that watch us, watch me, you're asking this question. And maybe you're going to like a secular guy like Nomad Capitalist. I see his videos popping up in YouTube a lot. And you pay him and he'll tell you what he likes. And obviously he likes Colombia. I think he likes Ecuador. He likes Malaysia. And my wife's Malaysian. You stay in Malaysia now. So obviously it's, it's one of the top 10 choices, I would say. But you've got other factors and other risks that you might not have thought about. So let's go through the risk. How did it transpire in your life? You're a Christian, you believe the Bible and prophecy, you got lots of friends that are trying to move. Where did you go first, and how did it pan out? Give us a short synopsis.
Okay, my personal take on all this is this first thing that the COVID-19 showed me is that time is short. Okay, you better value the time that God has given you. So it's either to do His work, and it's more than just saving your own life, and we have to take whatever time that we have and repurpose it for His kingdom and His glory. That's number one. And in line with that, the next thing is that we have to consider is our present place, the place where God wants us to be. And this is one thing that I've been seeking the Lord, because in cities, it's over-evangelized. There are places that need to hear the gospel. And a lot of people are not moving. And if they move, and when they move, they want to bring their city lifestyle with them. So they are going to duplicate. That's their dream and goal, to duplicate their lifestyle. So it seems that lifestyle is the one that is governing people's life, dictating their ventures, and where to relocate. So I believe that this is a time whereby God is, reshuffling the deck and pushing His people out. So that's what happened to me. Now, it's not going to happen immediately, so there will be intermediary adjustment and changes along the way. Just as I have gone through, it's not easy leaving friends, but with each step that you take, it does not mean that is the final destination, which is why we are still constantly hearing God, and God will lead us to connect with the right people at the right time, at the right place. And I can say that for this time I'm here because I'm most surprised to meet Pastor Steve, of all person, here in Thailand.
So the spiritual foundations there, you got to be in the will of God. The very name Goshen is temporary. Okay? So anything that's a Goshen is temporary. And I like what you said about that. You said like the Egyptian Goshen was temporary. David had a Goshen that was the cave of Adullam. You mentioned a very interesting Goshen in the New Testament.
Yes, there was Paul. God kept Paul safe in the prison.
Yeah, Paul's Goshen was prison. So your Goshen might be a prison. When people are trying to kill you, like they tried to kill Paul, he stayed safe by being in the prison. And then he wrote, Philippians, Colossians, and all the prison epistles. So how do we answer this question? Okay, if I had no restriction, if I had the means and the ability to make sure that me, my family, were safe in the next global famine / lockdown / war, where is safe? In a certain sense, we've lived through Goshen fever. A lot of churches and groups and splinter groups and people who no longer even go to church and teach kind of kooky stuff, I would say kooky because you still need to be church, you still need to be grounded, you still need to follow the Word of God. It should all be based on the Bible. But they got all these ideas. So some people have left, and Singaporeans especially are very attracted to Thailand for good reason. Abundant food, water, energy, friendly people. The natives are friendly to you. That's very important. They're not going to hurt you. They're not going to turn on you. So that's all good. But they all go up to Chiang Mai and they buy farmland. And from my perspective, they're all going to give up. Because Singaporeans are city dwellers. They're city slickers. They're not going to become farmers. You ain't going to become a farmer by studying YouTube. And we have our good friend, Pastor Joshua from Cambodia. Every seminar he does, we did some hosting of his seminar on our channel. And then his Telegram, grew, and that's great. It's fantastic. But Pastor Joshua is really one of a kind. And if you can go live next to him in Cambodia, well, then that's probably going to work out. But if you're going to buy acres and acres and you are used to city living in Singapore, in the end, you're going to end up in a condo in Bangkok somewhere. And when things go bad, I don't know how that's going to go. For many years, I've been advising people to prepare by having at least a month's worth of food and water. And I've tried several long life food products. And I've chosen one that I think is the most organic that I can find for myself and my family, and it's called New Manna. So if you're looking for long life food, it's called New Manna, and we have a very dedicated link for this, newmanna.com/Pastor Steve. All right, their tubs will last 25 years on the shelf, and I not only store it, but because I find it's good quality and it's organic, I actually eat it when my fresh produce run low. So if you use the promo code Pastor Steve, you will get 10% discount. New Manna is owned and operated by Christians who support this ministry and other ministries when you purchase it. So that's why I'm willing to let you know that's what I use, right? newmanna.com/Pastor Steve. I hope that will help you to prepare at least for a month, at least have something. If the internet goes down, the grid goes down, something unexpected happens, at least a month. That will keep you going. Then you can decide what to do. You're going to bunker down, then you need more. You're going to move, then you got some supply. All right? Okay, God bless you. tell us a little bit. You got some friends that have gone up to Chiang Mai. What's happened to them and their lifestyle?
Yeah. Now, we cannot change our lifestyle overnight.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be very, very difficult. And in the long run, it's unsustainable. So that's what happened to some of the people that I heard of in Cambodia, and in other places, even in South America, in Latin America.
So Singapore, so let's name the countries.
Yeah.
So Singaporeans have gone to Nicaragua.
Yes, I
lived there.
Yes.
For how long?
I think probably about 1-2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
Can they speak Spanish?
No.
No. So they picked Nicaragua, of all places, which is where the migrant caravan that the Biden administration is funding to the tune of at least $7 billion. And then we've got UN money. Yeah, this is confirmed now. So these migrants, illegal migrants heading to America to destroy America, are given UN credit cards. Like they flash them and they show it with money given. I think about $3,000 every month they're given. Absolutely a hot spot of illegal activity. It's always been that way in Nicaragua, in my memory. So they go there. What did they find?
Well, I think the premise of choosing these nations, the basic premise is to get away from cities, to get away from surveillance. Yeah. So the more primitive and unknown and jungle-like.
Jungle-like. So those are like places, Costa Rica, Nicaragua.
The safer it is. The closer to nature, then the lesser the probability of people seeking you out. So that is the basic premise of which many people revolve around in their decision making.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did they enjoy Nicaragua?
Well, it's tough because as in all adjustment, it is adapting to the local culture and lifestyle. And that is the difficult part. And which is why Singaporeans choose Thailand, because number one, the people are friendly.
Friendly,
yes,
important.
Yes, and they are welcoming of tourists.
Yeah,
and they are very hospitable.
Yeah.
Okay, so it makes Thailand a very good place.
Yeah. So a lot of Americans that I've met, when they talk about this Goshen idea, Americans are probably the most equipped. So I don't want to, influence you if you feel that you're going to bunker down in some bunker or farm or ranch that you have made for yourself. With all power to you. That's pretty amazing. But most people are not going to buy a ranch and run a farm, and they don't know how to, keep cattle and sheep and goats and all that. So when they're looking for a solution in America, Thailand is not on the radar for a lot of Americans simply because they either haven't been here or they're afraid of the fact that they don't speak Thai. But you don't speak Thai.
No, I don't.
The Russians are coming here in droves. The Poles, because they want to run away from the World War III that will start with Russia and Ukraine. The Japanese have been coming here for ages. None of them speak Thai. And they do really well here. But that's hard to convince Americans. But, there are places where they're just so friendly. That's just a big part that I think that maybe the nomad capitalists or others that are talking about Goshens and creating a second home or a safe haven, they don't think about that. I am biased because I speak Thai. And I think that as long as you got some Thai friends, it will work out. As a Goshen, again, remember, Goshen is temporary. You don't want Paul to be in prison forever. You don't want, God doesn't want David to be in the cave of Adullam forever. But if you're not in the cave of Adullam, Saul will kill you, right? If Paul was not in prison, then the Judaizers would have killed him.
Yeah.
So the idea of a Goshen is very biblical and is very important.
Yes.
And we've been given warning after warning. I've been teaching about the Revelation timeline for a while. So we've gone through, so Nicaragua, northern Thailand, they bought some farms. Turns out they're not farmers.
Well, I think that that is quite a common theme among city dwellers, moving into a land and trying to cultivate their own food. The leap is quite quantum. It's a huge jump.
Yeah.
And it takes very strong mindset to be able to weather the rigors.
Right.
Okay, but most important of all, Goshen, in its technical meaning, is closeness to God.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Explain that. That's wonderful.
It's closeness to God. So if you are in a place that you are feeling frustrated and you do not sense God with you, then probably you're in the wrong place, even though technically it is the safest of place. So before we pursue Goshen, we really need to reconnect back to God and seek Him for what is His will and His calling upon your life.
Yeah.
You know, because we all have to give an account one day of how we use the remaining of our time on it.
Okay, so if I can add that, so when the Jews were in Goshen, that's where they heard God to sacrifice the lamb and put the blood on the lintel and the doorpost, so that was their closeness to God. They got close to the very symbol, the very object lesson of Jesus' blood sacrifice. They heard that story, the most important story of the entire Bible, which continues in the New Testament, the blood sacrifice of the Messiah that saves us. They got it in Goshen. So in Goshen, you get revelation. In Goshen, you get close to God. So I really like that.
And if you allow me to add on,
please.
You see, Egypt is a surrogate. You know, many people miss that. You know, and how can a family become a nation whereby they are so vulnerable to the enemies around, and also the possibility of being defiled by assimilating into other cultures? So I believe that God staged this famine. 7 years of plenty for Egypt to wealth up, to store up, and then 7 years of famine. And this 7 years of famine drove Jacob and his family into Goshen, whereby they are protected and they are shielded and in that safe, and they were left alone actually, because the Egyptians hate shepherds. So they were left alone to grow, and it was in this 400 years they were protected and provided that they are able to grow from one family.
Yes, Goshen allows you to
into a nation.
Goshen is a place where you get close to God. So if you're just buying up something where you're not in, to me, a Christian community, that's the important thing. It's not buying a farm where you're going to survive by yourself. Even those ranches in America, you can stockpile bullets. If you got hundreds of illegal immigrants coming in through Texas, you're going to have a hard time if there's a global famine. So you need a community of people. You get closer to God. You're surrounded by believers. It's got to be a church that's involved. We're not like letting go of all that we've learned and practiced for 2,000 years and say, now we're in this Goshen community. No, you're in a cult. You need to maintain, Orthodox Christianity. You need to still believe, I don't know, some of the funny stuff you mentioned. We'll get to it another video. But so you've gone, so let's go through this. You've gone Singapore, which the Nomad capitalist believes is one of the safe places, but we as believers see that a surveillance police state that restricts freedom of information is not a Goshen. So we've gone through Singapore. Malaysia, you're in. Thailand at the north. I think south is better, so we can come back to that. Then you also said a lot of your Singaporean friends went to Dubai.
Yes.
What's the attraction? What's there? What do they find?
One of the reasons is that because it's an Arab state, and they have a mind of their own, so they will not adhere to the globalist agenda readily.
You know what? I have to say something about Islam that I really do enjoy. The Muslims were mainly in freedom during COVID. So when I did tours to Saudi Arabia, people were really afraid, and they thought, Saudi Arabia is, Americans are deathly afraid of Saudi Arabia. It's so indoctrinated, so ingrained. But when you get there, there's hardly any police surveillance. There's no, when you go through the airport, it's so free. There's not much, the security measure, right? I want to say this about Malaysia, Dubai, all of these Muslim nations. Actually, even though Americans are so afraid of Islamic nations, many of them had a lot more freedom. Their people enjoyed a lot more freedom during COVID. And I took tours into Saudi Arabia, and I'm going to do it again at the end of this year if you want to come.
Join author and teacher Pastor Steve Cioccolanti on the next Saudi Arabia expedition. Embark on the adventure of a lifetime and explore Midian, the homeland of Moses. Included in this tour, teaching by Pastor Steve Cioccolanti and local expert tour guide. To take this ancient, epic journey with Pastor Steve Cioccolanti on the next Saudi Arabia expedition, book now before the tour is booked out.
See the chart top of that? That's Mount Sinai. I never get tired of looking at that. So it's going to be a wonderful climb. We're going to have a wonderful meal together, and I invite you to come and join me in our next expedition of the biblical tour of Saudi Arabia. That's following the footsteps of Musa, Moses, the prophet, the great prophet.
The Saudi Arabia expedition. Now to secure your spot, as registration is limited. Book now